Hello, I'm your reader Mary, here with you today, March 25th, 2025, with the New Bedford Standard Times. Let's start with the weather. Today will be breezy in the afternoon, high of 54, low of 36. Wednesday will be cooler with rain and drizzle, high of 47 and a low of 31. Thursday we've got a partly sunny day with the chance of a shower, high of 49 and a low of 33. Friday, times of sun and clouds, high of 53, low of 36. And Saturday, couple of morning showers, high of 47 and a low of 34. Let's check out the front page. Our first story, up and running. From the Herald News, passenger rail service has been restored to Fall River in New Bedford for the first time in nearly 67 years. The South Coast Rail to Boston is now officially open for business. Multiple decades in the making, the MBTA's Middleborough-Lakeville line has now been renamed the Fall River-New Bedford line. It extends from Boston south to Taunton, Fall River, and New Bedford, connecting the South Coast's three largest cities to the state capital by train for the first time since 1958. In New Bedford, well over 100 people waited at the station before dawn to witness the first train of the new Fall River-New Bedford line leaving the station at 4:27 a.m. The new pedestrian bridge spanning Route 18 aglow behind them. People were buttoned up against the early morning's chill, but warm with excitement. Most were there to mark the occasion, including Ruhan Sharma Soneha, who said he had also seen the opening of the MBTA's Green Line extension in 2022. Penny Brewer of Fairhaven, holding a handmade sign reading Bon Voyage, said she first heard about the plans to reestablish train service to Boston in the 70s and has been waiting ever since. It'll be good for town, she said. James Abreu, originally of Tingsboro, but a UMass Dartmouth student, sported a red sweatshirt with the T logo across the front. He described himself as a railroad enthusiast. It is definitely a historical moment, he said. It's truly something special. Fall River's first train at 5:05 a.m. drew a crowd, including Mayor Paul Coogan and State Rep Carol Fiola, and many enthusiasts to see it off. Chris Aguiar of Fall River, who lives in Worcester now, made sure to wake up early just to be able to say he took the first train ride. I grew up in Fall River 30-some-odd years, he said, and I've always had an interest in trains. Never having a train down here stunk. He and many others held out their phones and snapped shots and captured video of the historic occasion with no bigger enthusiast than Colson Miller, age 9. The MBTA has been the most biggest thing for me, and I love it so much, Colson said. I loved it since I was like 5 or 6 years old. This is the most exciting day of my life. He wasn't taking a ride just yet. He had school later that morning. But in his hands, he clutched his phone, capturing a video for YouTube and swag handed out by South Coast Rail project managers. The managers are witnessing the first departures. Colson said he has his future career all lined up. An unsurprising choice. I want to be an MBTA conductor, he said. The MBTA's Fall River New Bedford Line project required the construction of 6 new passenger platforms: Fall River Depot, Freetown, New Bedford, Church Street, East Taunton, and Middleborough. Along with those two are 2 layover stations in Fall River and New Bedford, where trains are docked overnight. The MBTA's fee structure puts all stations into Zone 8, which means it's $12.25 for a one-way ticket all the way to Boston's South Station, or $6 if paying a reduced fare. The schedule has trips about every 70 minutes during the week and every 2 hours on the weekends. In a 2022 interview, South Coast Rail spokesperson Jean Fox said she estimated the train would carry 1,610 riders a day from Fall River and New Bedford, taking them off traffic-choked expressways. A ride from end to end will take about 90 minutes. The commuter rail line arrives both a year and a half late and also over a month early. Initially planned to open in late 2023, a miscalculated safety testing schedule caused project managers to punt the long-delayed project into mid-2024 and eventually to May 2025. MBTA General Manager and CEO Philip Eng announced earlier this year that safety testing had been concluded more quickly than anticipated, bringing the start of revenue service to late March. The project's history spans 7 state governors, but South Coast Rail, as currently built, was set in motion by the administration of then Charlie Baker governorship in 2017. Aboard the first train in Fall River, Viola noted that many officials deserved thanks, and Baker deserved a special pat on the back for being able to see the need brought to him that we could do this. He made that last push before this administration, Viola said. Baker himself, in a statement to the Herald News, noted that he made the rail a priority of his tenure. After years of unfulfilled promises, our administration was the first to take South Coast Rail from theory to action. We fully funded a realistic construction plan, and that it's now operating. Fall River, New Bedford, and all South Coast communities are Massachusetts treasures, and we are excited for the rail line to bring more visitors here and make it easier for the people of the South Coast to travel to Greater Boston. The $1.1 billion project is one of the largest and most expensive infrastructure projects in the South Coast in recent history, and perhaps the largest to come to fruition. Passenger trains once crisscrossed the state as part of the Old Colony Railroad system, operated by the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad Company. For almost a century, until the mid-20th century, the company commonly known as the New Haven Railroad dominated transportation in southern New England. But by the late 1950s, facing multi-million-dollar losses, and as trains shifted to greater automobile ownership and the building of more interstate highways, the railroad system's operators struggled. New Haven Railroad discontinued service to Fall River, New Bedford, and Taunton after July 8, 1958. It continued passenger service elsewhere on the Old Colony network, floated by state subsidies, before abandoning it entirely a year later. At a February 2025 public meeting, State Senator Michael Rodriguez of Westport acknowledged the change in transportation trends and how things have swung back. With the post-World War II boom in highway development and the changes of transportation priorities throughout the United States of America, our commuter rail system fell apart, Rodriguez said, but here we are again. 7 governors and $1.1 billion later. South Coast Rail was first envisioned in 1991 during the term of the then Governor William Weld as an extension of the MBTA's commuter rail line from Stoughton. He expressed such confidence that it would be built under his tenure that in February 92 he proclaimed, "Sue me if it doesn't happen." Politicians promised riders at least 9 different deadlines from 1997 to 2024. The price tag kept rising from $136 million to $1.1 billion and over $3 billion if a proposed, quote, full build with electric trains through Taunton and Stoughton ever materializes. The project remains conceptual and largely unfunded. MBTA's website, which once estimated the full build for 2030, no longer includes a timeline. Even in its limited form, the project spanned the terms of 6 U.S. presidents, 7 governors, 5 New Bedford mayors, 7 Fall River mayors, and 8 Taunton mayors. I've literally been working on this project for close to 30 years, where we've had so many promises to once again connect Fall River and New Bedford, 2 hub cities of the South Coast, to Boston via commuter rail, Rodriguez said. Aboard the train in Fall River on Monday, Viola said building the project was a group effort, including not just legislators and politicians, but everyone. If this community, along with New Bedford, did not push as hard as everyone in the same direction, this would not have happened, Viola said. If everybody wants it, if everybody's pushing, that's how we get things done. New Bedford staple, Gary's Best Hot Dogs, listed for sale. While Gary's Best Hot Dogs remains open, the business that has been operating for 4 decades is on the market as its owners prepare for retirement. The iconic North End hot dog stand at 958 Ashley Boulevard will be closing for good sometime this year. But for now, owners Joe and Anita Franco and staff are encouraging customers to stop by and visit from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. The crew at Gary's Best is encouraging supporters to post pictures and stories on a prior Facebook post. They pinned it to their page, inviting people to share memories of their 40 years, noting that they are enjoying reminiscing. Why are they closing? Last year, Franco's made the decision to close after 4 decades. They explained why on a social media last November. After much thought and after 40 years in business, total retirement is on our agenda for 2025. That's a quote from the post from Gary's Best Hot Dogs Facebook account. With appreciation for so many years of a successful business, we will be sharing news as to what the future will entail. What's the price? Well, the property is listed at $650,000 on a 0.19 acre lot at 958 Ashley Boulevard. It was built in 1983. The listing says, quote, "Own a piece of New Bedford's history and be the next owner of Gary's Best Hot Dogs. Located in the north end of New Bedford, this lucrative business has been a staple in the community for 40 years. The walk-up restaurant has a large parking lot and a great outdoor eating area with numerous picnic tables. This business has a wonderful history and a dedicated customer following. The current manager is available to continue on with a new team." The listing is courtesy of E. Jeffrey Pontiff, E.J. Pontiff Real Estate, at 508-961-1671. Their address is 958 Ashley Boulevard, New Bedford, and the MLS listing number is 733-41413. In our final front page story, lawmakers face fury at town halls. The questions lobbed at freshman Democrat Rep. Kelly Morrison during a packed town hall Thursday night were meaty. What's the plan to enforce court rulings against Trump and Musk in the event they disregard court orders? If Trump ends Social Security, we will be unable to pay our mortgage. We will be homeless at age 70. What can we do? What should we do? How will Democrats rehabilitate their standing as the only hope to save the country? Followed by, why does Chuck Schumer still have a job? Morrison, who represents a liberal-leaning district in the Minneapolis suburbs, echoed back outrage at the Trump administration and sympathy with the queries, which were written on paper and passed to the stage for a moderator to read. But ultimately, she admitted she has few cards to play in a federal government dominated by Republicans in the House, Senate, and White House. "I had big plans that are on hold," Morrison said. President Donald Trump's efforts to transform the federal government at a breakneck pace have upturned norms and tested legal limits. The impacts are rippling across the country, and lawmakers are hearing about it. During a week-long break from Congress to visit their districts, Democrats like Morrison faced voters demanding answers on what the party is doing to stand up to a president who is pushing the bounds of executive power, especially after several Democratic senators joined with Republicans to advance a GOP-led government funding extension and avoid a shutdown. And the few Republicans who have opted out of holding town halls after their leadership advised against it have been met with questions about the speed and scope of their cuts, even if their voters are generally supportive of the president's agenda. The party has dismissed the raucous town halls in conservative districts as the work of liberal activist groups, which have encouraged people to flood public forums in order to hide frustrations with the administration. But multiple Republican lawmakers who spoke with USA Today say they are hearing concerns from constituents and are communicating them to the administration. You get into Social Security offices closing, the federal employees that are dispersed out through the state, we're hearing of some concerns. Some are coming from employees that are affected, some are coming from the community. Those are the ones we have to pay attention to, said Senator Tom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, and one of the most vulnerable Republican senators up for re-election in 2026. That's why I'm glad that the president has said it's time to move into a surgeons versus a lumberjacks approach to DOGE. Tillis added, "I think that was good advice from the president." Let the dumpster fire burn out. In Trump's first 60 days in office, the administration has gutted agencies like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the U.S. Agency for International Development, attempted to withhold congressionally appropriated funding, downsized agencies like the Department of Education, sought to close dozens of Social Security offices, and laid off tens and thousands of federal employees. Trump has argued that the administration is seeking to root out waste, fraud, and abuse from a bloated federal government, and said he's fighting an administrative state staffed by unelected bureaucrats disloyal to Trump and the American people. Democratic voters, shocked by the rapid changes and without any levers of power in Washington, are begging their lawmakers to do something. After Democrats held protest signs, walked out of Trump's joint address to Congress, their supporters complained that the effort was performative and fell flat. The volume of those complaints ratcheted up significantly after Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat from New York, led a group of Senate Democrats to help Republicans pass a partisan funding extension, arguing that the consequences of a shutdown would be much worse than the bill itself, which gives the administration more leeway over spending decisions. The full force of their voters' discontent bubbled up at town halls when Democrats returned to their district for recess. Attendees to a town hall in Golden, Colorado, shouted for a full minute at Democratic Senator Michael Bennet, who faced questions on why he voted to confirm several of Trump's cabinet nominees, such as Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum. A woman at town hall in Maryland screamed at Democratic Rep. Glenn Ivey, who was explaining Democrats' constraints until the 2026 midterm elections. "You're talking about voting, and the House is on fire." The approximately 2,000-person crowd in suburban Minnesota on Thursday night was decidedly more reserved. The event opened with a warning from moderator that town halls elsewhere had gotten out of hand and to please be respectful. Still, multiple people attending Morrison's town hall said they showed up in search of hope and an indication that the Democrats are fighting. "I'm a little disappointed with Democrats' response to the first 2 months of the Trump administration," said Alicia O'Shaughnessy of Brooklyn Park, who is 43 years old. "I feel the lack of action is scary. None of us know what to do, and I know they're struggling with it." Russ Borchardt, 71, a U.S. Army veteran, who typically voted Republican until Trump first ran in 2016. "Somehow we need more. We need more out of the party." His wife, Teresa Borchardt, 68, added, "We just hope that Democrats can coalesce and do something. Let's let the dumpster fire burn out and see what happens is not an effective strategy." The vast majority of Republican lawmakers have cheered on the changes to the federal government, spearheaded by Trump's advisor, billionaire Elon Musk, under the Department of Energy Efficiency Project. But during their first break from Congress in February, their town halls were overrun with angry constituents livid at the changes. Republican leadership has accused Democratic groups of paying protesters to create chaos at the events. While Democratic groups have promoted the Republican events, there is no evidence attendees are being paid. The chair of the National Republican Congressional Committee, which helps Republicans win seats in the House of Representatives, advised members to hold virtual town halls instead to avoid more viral confrontations. However, a few Republicans still held public forums over the past week. Rep. Chuck Edwards, a Republican of North Carolina, was booed and hissed at during a town hall in Asheville, North Carolina, and one man was escorted out of the room for yelling at the congressman. Rep. Mike Flood, a Republican of Nebraska, was shouted down as he defended the changes as making progress in reducing spending. And Rep. Harriet Hagman, a Republican in Wyoming, heard concerns about Musk, the unelected billionaire, making decisions even from constituents who otherwise supported the president's agenda. Members cited federal services and employees they're looking out for in their districts, from military bases and border control outposts to passport processing centers, Social Security offices, Forest Service agents, and Veterans Affairs clinics. "The art is going to be making sure you right-size," said Representative Ryan Zinke, a Republican from Montana. So a right size is, from a former SEAL perspective, make sure the front line is fine. As Republicans shy away from in-person town meetings, Democrats are hosting their own events in GOP-held parts of the country to point the finger at Trump and his party. Former 2024 Democratic vice presidential nominee and governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, held a town hall-style event on Tuesday in GOP Rep. Derek Van Orden's district. It's a swing seat in western Wisconsin. It came after other liberal groups organized their own town halls and invited Van Orden to join or attempted to join other groups' meetings with the congressman. On Capitol Hill last week, Van Orden told USA Today he's met with DOJ staff to ensure every single tax dollar that's allocated or appropriated for the Veterans Affairs Administration goes to veterans. He's also argued that the people turning up at Republican town halls across the country are, quote, agitators, disrupting constituents' ability to speak to their lawmakers. That's incredibly disrespectful, he said, and I'm not going to allow that to take place. Cindy Greening is a retired professional who said she decided to start a chapter of the progressive activist group Indivisible in western Wisconsin last fall, shortly before the presidential election. After a month of mourning the results, she said, I got up and I said I got to do something. Now the group hosts a weekly protest with other Democratic-aligned groups in downtown Eau Claire, the largest city in Van Orden's district. On Wednesday, people showed up wrapped in mittens and hats as the snow fell, holding signs saying, Doge smells dodgy, or dump Trump and his muskrat. People were counting on the guardrails, they were counting on the courts, they were counting on our congressional representatives to stand up. The checks and balances, they're letting us down horribly. 12 miles north, Carolyn Haas, 72, waited in her car outside the Veterans Affairs Clinic in Chippewa Falls, while her husband was seeing the doctor inside. Gail served in the U.S. Air Force in Thailand during the Vietnam War. Carolyn Haas said he's had care from the VA for multiple medical issues for decades since leaving the service. He's always had good care through the VA clinic, she said, adding that the clinic is more important than ever since multiple hospitals in the area have closed in recent years. That kind of put us in a crisis for medical care in this area. But asked what she thinks about the changes the administration has made, she added she's open to making sure the government works better, especially so it doesn't go broke by the time her kids and grandkids might need support. Maybe some of this needs to come out, how some of the money has been spent. We're a little bit past the middle, but there is one obituary to tell you about. It's Richard T. Jesse Pragana, 92 years old, of Acushnet. He passed away on Sunday, March 23rd. He was the husband of Olivia Pragana, with whom he shared 56 years of marriage. Born and raised in Acushnet, he was the son of Manuel and Maria Pragana. He was part owner of D. Filet Processing in New Bedford until his retirement. He enjoyed gardening, traveling, dining out with friends, and playing a good competitive game of Sweka. He loved following the New England Patriots during the Tom Brady era and loved going for a scenic drive with his wife and was most happy spending his time with her. Visiting hours will be held on Wednesday, March 26th from 9 to 10:30 at the Rock Funeral Home, 1285 Ashley Boulevard, New Bedford, followed by a funeral mass 11 a.m. in Our Lady of Immaculate Conception Church, 136 Earl Street, New Bedford. Burial will follow in Acushnet Cemetery. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, 501 St. Jude Place, Memphis, Tennessee, 38105. And for online tributes, please visit www.rock-funeralhome.com. Our next story from inside the paper: cost to raise a child in Massachusetts is the most nationwide. It costs more annually to raise a child in Massachusetts than some people make in a year. Parents Magazine released a state-by-state breakdown of how much it costs annually to raise a child in each state, and Massachusetts came in at number 1. The list, based on a 2024 study from Smart Asset, found that parents in Massachusetts spend on average nearly $650,000 on a child by the time they turn 18 years old. According to parents, the biggest expenses are typically housing, food, childcare, healthcare, education, and transportation. Here's what the cost breakdown is in Massachusetts. According to Smart Asset, it costs $35,841 per year for 2 working adults to raise 1 child in Massachusetts. That includes more than $21,000 annually in child care, just under $5,000 in additional housing, and about $2,200 in food. Medical costs per year are about $2,300 on average, while transportation is just under $3,000 per year. In total, other necessities for a child in Massachusetts come out to about $1,900 per year, according to the study. Although Massachusetts came in at number 1 on the list, several other New England states made the top 10. Per Smart Asset, here are the 10 most expensive states for raising a child, along with their totals. Massachusetts, $35,841. Hawaii, $35,049. Connecticut, $32,803. Colorado, $30,425. New York, $30,247. Connecticut, $29,468. New Hampshire, $27,849. Washington, $27,806. Rhode Island, $27,630. And number 10, Minnesota, $27,406. And finally, a story of discovery. Recently, archaeologists working near Luxor, Egypt, found an ancient Egyptian royal tomb in an area usually reserved for aristocratic women. But when they entered the burial chamber and saw a ceiling painted in blue with yellow stars and scenes from ancient religious text, the amduat, the kind of decoration normally exclusive to pharaohs' tombs, they were confused. They had actually found one of the last missing royal tombs of the ancient Egyptian 18th dynasty, the burial place of King Thutmose II. It was the first tomb of a royal pharaoh found in a century. The emotion is just one of extraordinary bewilderment, field director of the mission said. That's Piers Litherland, and he was speaking to the BBC. When I came out, my wife was waiting outside, and the only thing I could do was burst into tears. The discovery came about after a British-Egyptian team of archaeologists, headed by Litherland, had been exploring the western wadis near Egypt's Valley of the Kings for more than a decade when he discovered a staircase that led to the tomb. It took months to clear flood debris from the corridor and gain access to the burial chamber. The team expected to find the crushed remains of a burial chamber, but the tomb was empty. Litherland believes the tomb was deliberately evacuated of its contents because it was built underneath a waterfall which flooded a few years after the burial, whereupon the contents are thought to have been moved to another tomb. After sifting through the limestone at the burial site, they found fragments of alabaster jars inscribed with the names of Thutmose II and his wife, Queen Hatshepsut, one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs and one of the few women to rule outright. Thutmose II is believed to have reigned from 1493 to 1479 BC and was an ancestor of the famous pharaoh Tutankhamun. This has been the New Bedford Standard Times. I'm your reader, Mary, wishing you good health, be well, and we'll talk again next week. Take care.